Here are the longest life sentences given to celebrities. Number 10. R. Kelly. R. Kelly is more infamous than famous these days and has been in legal trouble for decades. A highly acclaimed and awarded musician, R. Kelly was on top of the R&B game for many years, having risen to fame for his song I Believe I Can Fly. In 1994, Kelly illegally married a 15-year-old who he had relations with after he found out she was pregnant. Kelly had met her at 13 and produced her first record, Age Ain't Nothing But a Number, which, given our current knowledge of Kelly's deviant practices, is deeply unsettling. In 1996, Kelly settled the case out of court where he was accused of severely improper conduct with a minor, and in 2002, the same day as his Winter Olympics performance, a video was released of Kelly performing deeply disturbing acts with a known minor. Kelly was then indicted on 12 counts of possessing illicit carnal media, however was acquitted due to a lack of probable cause in the acquisition of the evidence. In 2017, Kelly was accused by 3 different parents of indoctrinating their daughters into a coital cult, though no charges were laid. In 2019, Kelly was finally arrested on federal charges of numerous intimate crimes and obstruction of justice by Homeland Security. Following this arrest, prosecutors from Chicago and New York slammed him with another 18 counts of intimate crimes with a minor, trafficking, kidnapping, forced labor, and racketeering. After a lengthy legal process, Kelly was sentenced to a total of 30 years imprisonment for trafficking and racketeering to be served concurrently with 2 other 20-year sentences. Number 9. Oscar Pistorius. Oscar Pistorius was initially famous for being an accomplished Paralympic athlete and for running sprints in both the Paralympics and the Olympics. Pistorius had his legs removed from knee down at 11 months old due to fibular hemilia, which prevented the congenital growth of his fibula. After becoming a Paralympic champion in 2008, winning 3 gold medals in 100, 200, and 400 meter sprints, Pistorius applied to be permitted into the Olympics. At his World Championship debut, he was the first amputee to win a non-disabled world track medal, and he ran in both the Summer Olympics and Paralympics. But in 2013, Pistorius would become famous not for his actions on the track, but for the shooting and murder of his girlfriend Riva Steenkamp. Claiming that he mistook her for a home intruder, Pistorius fired numerous rounds into the closed bathroom she was inside, hitting her 4 times and ending her life. Despite also having charges for displaying a firearm in a restaurant and discharging rounds out of the sunroof of his car, Pistorius was only sentenced to 5 years in prison for culpable murder. After only a year in prison, Pistorius was released. Following appeals and retrials, however, Pistorius was resentenced to 15 years in prison, which he is currently serving. He will not be eligible for parole until 2024. Number 8. Joe Exotic. For anyone who watched the Tiger King series or was present in the cultural zeitgeist in 2020, Joe Exotic is an immediately recognizable name and personality. The enigmatic and curious owner of a big cat zoo in Oklahoma, Joe Exotic would own over 200 big cats, including lions, tigers, and pumas, along with bears, wolves, and monkeys. Numerous investigative reports from PETA and the Humane Society reported that the animals were frequently mistreated and abused, suffering repeated beatings and sprayings with ice water. The conditions were so bad that during the Humane Society investigations, 5 tigers died, including one which received no veterinary care whatsoever. The full story is too complicated and nuanced to do justice here, but over the years, Joe and a woman named Carol Baskins, who ran a big cat sanctuary, would begin feuding more and more heavily. Eventually, it got to the point where Joe actually hired 2 hitmen to end Carol's life as she was out for a run. He was investigated and apprehended by the FBI for the attempt to hire a hitman, and would be charged with 2 counts of murder for hire, 8 counts of the trade of prohibited exotic species, and 9 counts of violating the Endangered Species Act. For this, Joe was sentenced to 22 years in prison, though a later amendment would instead charge him with only 1 count of murder for hire and take off 1 year from his sentence. Number 7. Eric Naposki. Naposki was a professional football player in the NFL and World League of American Football from 1988 to 97. He played in 5 games over 2 seasons in the NFL, 4 games with the New England Patriots and 1 game with the Indianapolis Colts. He then played 4 seasons in the WLAF with the Barcelona Dragons, which won the World Bowl in his last season. If Naposki's career had ended there, most of us wouldn't know his name and he would live on in obscurity. But he's on this list, so there must be some reason for that. During his time between playing in the NFL and the WLAF, he met and was seduced by and started dating Nanette Johnston, who was living with and dating millionaire William McLaughlin. Naposki and Johnston fell in love and hatched a plan to get the sizable $2.5 million life insurance policy of McLaughlin. In 1994, the couple shot William and ended his life and would escape uncaught for 15 years before authorities finally caught up to the pair and arrested them. Naposki was almost sentenced to death, but a lack of evidence tying him to the firing of the weapon allowed him to escape with his life. Both were sentenced to life without parole. Number 6. Ryan Grantham. Ryan Grantham is a Canadian actor best known for his roles in Diary of a Wimpy Kid, Riverdale, Supernatural, iZombie, and numerous other films and TV shows. By 22, Grantham was severely depressed, had self-destructive and homicidal ideations, a severe substance abuse issue with a certain herb, and had spent a lot of time watching disturbing and violent videos on the internet. These factors combined led Grantham to begin planning the murder of Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. On the 31st of March 2020, Grantham grabbed a .22 caliber weapon and, while his mother was playing piano, ended her life. He then recorded a video confessing to the crime before loading his car up with weaponry and ammunition with a plan to drive from Squamish, BC to Ottawa, Ontario to attack PM Justin Trudeau. A trip of 4,500 kilometers which would take him a week. Before he got out of the province, however, he doubled back, deciding instead to attack Simon Fraser University where he was enrolled. He had rationalized the murder of his mother as a way to spare her the pain of what he would do next. Later that night, after deciding not to attack his university, he instead handed himself in to police. Grantham was sentenced to life in prison with a possibility of parole after 14 years, and counselors say his progress and rehabilitation is encouraging. Number 5. Michael Jace. Michael Jace was a character actor who appeared in numerous TV and film projects, mostly with side roles or background characters, but also occasionally landing a big role, like his portrayal of Julian Lowe in the hit FX drama The Shield. As the roles became fewer and less well paid, Jace became angrier and more distrustful of his wife April. Along with his economic insecurity, he believed that April was cheating on him. When April confronted him and asked for a divorce, that was the last straw for Michael. He grabbed a weapon and, in front of their 2 sons, shot her through the leg. He then yelled, "You like to run so much, why don't you try running to heaven?" before putting another bullet through her other leg and finishing her with 2 shots to the torso. Jace called the police himself and confessed to the crime. 2 days after his arrest, he was charged, and 2 years after that, he was sentenced to 40 years in prison for second-degree murder. Number 4. Suge Knight. Suge Knight is an American record executive, co-founder, and CEO of the rap label Death Row Records, and repeat offender. Suge Knight was a massive name in the hip-hop world during the 90s and was instrumental in the advent of gangster rap, signing artists such as Tupac, Snoop Dogg, Dr. Dre, MC Hammer, and more. Suge Knight and Death Row Records were deeply entwined and integrated into the foundation of gangster rap and, to an extent, mainstream hip-hop. Suge was affiliated with the mob Piru Bloods, a Compton-based gang, and had numerous run-ins with the law in connection with gang activity of all kinds. His most notorious connection would be to the orchestration of the murder of rap icon the Notorious B.I.G. But despite a series of stints in prison, Suge would stay largely free and with an untarnished reputation. That is, until the filming of the movie Straight Outta Compton, a biographical depiction of the foundational gangster rap group NWA's rise to success. Following an argument with Terry Carter and Clay Sloan on the set, Suge would follow the two to a burger stand near the set and attack them with his car, ending Terry's life and severely injuring Clay Sloan. For this, Suge was sentenced to 28 years in prison, though it is possible other charges will be laid to extend his prison time. Number 3. Hiroshi Ogawa. Hiroshi was a Japanese pitcher for the Lotte Marines and played for them from 1985 to 1992 and was an assistant coach until 1999. However, in 2004, Ogawa was no longer associated with the team and was beginning beginning to struggle under the weight of extreme debt. He was employed by an industrial waste disposal company and decided to go to the CEO's house to ask for a loan or support of some kind. When he arrived there, he was met by the elderly housekeeper, who he asked for money. When she refused, he pushed her down the stairs, which knocked her unconscious, before robbing the residence of the CEO. He then collected the unconscious housekeeper and put her in the trunk of his car before he drove to a nearby pond and dumped her in to drown. Ogawa stole a total of 1.75 million yen, or almost $18,000. Charged with assault, grand theft, and murder, Ogawa was sentenced to life in prison and is still behind bars. Number 2. Darren Sharper. Darren Sharper played in the NFL for 14 seasons, during which he was recognized for his skill as a safety. He played 8 seasons with the Green Bay Packers, 4 seasons with the Minnesota Vikings, and ended his career with 2 seasons playing for the New Orleans Saints. He was one of the top defensive backs during his career and a 5-time Pro Bowl selection. As well, he is tied for most defensive touchdowns. But Sharper's true infamy would only be revealed after his retirement. Allegations surfaced that he forcibly intoxicated and assaulted over a dozen women across numerous states. Sharper worked in tandem with his friend and former police officer, Brandon Liccardi, who would help him to identify, intoxicate, subdue, and violate up to 16 women. Sharper was persecuted in California, Louisiana, Arizona, and Nevada, along with federal charges. He was given numerous sentences from each state, all to run concurrently to one another, meaning that despite being served with a 9-year sentence in Arizona, a 20-year sentence in California, an 8-year sentence in Nevada, and a 15-year sentence in Louisiana, he will be able to go free after just 20 years served. On top of those sentences, he will serve 3 years of supervised parole and pay a $20,000 fine. Number 1. William Hayden. William Hayden was a firearmsmith and United States Marine before he became a television personality in 2011 with the Discovery Channel show Sons of Guns. Hayden had a difficult childhood and was heavily abused by his father, recalling once a punch that sent him through a wall. He enlisted in the Marines at 18 and served for 6 years before returning to civilian life. He started a construction and refrigeration company and ran a firearms smithing shop on the side, which would become the core of the Discovery Channel show. His show was cancelled after he was arrested and charged with indecent acts and aggravated crimes against nature against a juvenile. He claimed these allegations were fallacious, coming from his ex-girlfriend, who was the girl's mother, but after testimony of the victim, he was summarily found guilty. He was then charged with allegations from his eldest daughter that he had been abusive and indecently intimate 22 years before. For the 2 charges, he was sentenced to 2 life sentences running concurrently and a consecutive sentence of 40 years, ensuring he will die in prison. Those were the longest life sentences given to celebrities. If you learned something or enjoyed this video, please like and share, and be sure to follow for more.